Ever wondered about those women who live completely on their own? No romantic partner, no significant other, not even appearing to search for one. The real answer isn't what most people assume. It's not about loneliness, limited options, or emotional wounds. The truth lies somewhere far more unsettling, somewhere that challenges everything society has taught us about a woman's purpose and fulfillment. When a woman deliberately chooses solitude, she isn't losing her way, she's discovering herself. And this journey of self-discovery rarely comes with external validation, social media attention, or constant companionship. Instead, it emerges through quiet reflection, inner strength, and a form of freedom that many still struggle to comprehend. No, she's not experiencing isolation. She's being intentional. She's not emotionally unavailable. She simply grew weary of giving her warmth to those who never truly appreciated it. There's something deeply challenging about a woman who doesn't require a relationship to feel complete. Her independence dismantles conventional power dynamics, shatters myths about emotional dependency, and reveals an uncomfortable truth. Many people don't know how to connect with a woman who doesn't need rescuing. Meanwhile, countless women are just beginning to recognize their own reflection in this powerful, silent mirror of self-sufficiency. Psychology teaches us that whatever we deny within ourselves becomes part of our shadow, those aspects of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge. These independent women often represent this collective shadow. They embody what many secretly aspire to become but lack the courage to pursue. They don't desperately seek love and attention. They quietly make their choices. They don't perform to attract validation. They step back to preserve their essence. They're less concerned with fairy tale romances and more invested in their inner peace. This makes people uncomfortable because while society pushes the urgency of partnership, these women have discovered something revolutionary: the power of being their own companion. The woman living contentedly without a partner isn't lost or missing something. She's operating on an entirely different frequency, one where nothing is desperately pursued. Everything is consciously chosen, where external approval isn't necessary because presence with oneself is sufficient. Perhaps that's why she generates so much criticism, judgment, and so many attempts to categorize or explain away her choices. What many fail to understand is that behind her apparent aloneness exists a fullness that challenges our emotional status quo, a presence that's complete in itself. She doesn't want just any connection. She wants one that allows her to expand rather than contract. And until that arrives, she stands complete within herself. Maybe this doesn't make sense to you right now. Perhaps you think it's exaggeration, pride, or hidden emotional damage. But somewhere deep inside, a question quietly persists even when you try to ignore it. What if this solitary path is actually the only one leading to the most essential form of love, the love that begins with yourself? The quietness surrounding a woman who lives independently isn't emptiness, it's sacred space. Those who can't understand the value of this sanctuary often label her as cold, distant, or arrogant. But what few recognize is that she didn't build these boundaries to exclude others. She created them to preserve herself. Psychology also reveals that whatever we avoid confronting within ourselves, we inevitably project onto others. Perhaps that's why many still confuse solitude with absence, when in reality it can be the most fertile ground for self-discovery and growth. While most seek fulfillment through external connections, this woman has turned her attention inward. Within the vastness of her own consciousness, she's confronted the shadows she avoided for years: childhood wounds, unacknowledged abandonments, attachments masquerading as love. Her decision to live independently didn't emerge from unhealed pain, but from scars that have finally mended properly. She hasn't lost faith in connection. She simply stopped accepting what others called love when it only diminished her. This woman knows chaos intimately. She's loved so deeply she lost herself. She's given excessively. She's accepted crumbs that should never have been offered. But eventually, something shifted. This awakening wasn't sudden or dramatic. It was a series of disappointments that gradually stopped causing pain and started offering wisdom. What you perceive as emotional unavailability isn't coldness, it's emotional maturity. And maturity can be intimidating because it demands authenticity, depth, and honesty. She's not interested in just any companionship. She wants genuine reciprocity. She's no longer attracted to empty promises but to authentic presence. This explains why she seems unreachable to many. She doesn't need rescue, she needs recognition. And that requires more than charm or sweet words. It demands the courage to explore depths where few are willing to venture. That's where many retreat, not because she's difficult, but because she's whole. When a woman becomes complete within herself, she awakens two opposing reactions: admiration and fear. Admiration from those also seeking wholeness. Fear from those still living in halves, waiting for someone else to complete them. She has no interest in completing anyone. She wants to connect deeply with someone who has also found themselves. Until then, she remains independent, not by circumstance but by conscious choice, out of loyalty to her authentic self. This woman isn't hiding from life. She's protecting her essence. There's a profound difference between isolation and self-preservation. Yet society doesn't easily accept women like this. A world still preaching that happily ever after only exists in pairs. A world suspicious of those without partners, as if independence indicates some personal failure. Psychology suggests that where social convention rules, authenticity struggles to exist. This woman doesn't live by convention. She lives by essence. She hears comments like, "You're too selective. You should be more open. No one's perfect." And she responds with a calm, steady, almost knowing smile. Because what others call selective is simply the basic respect it took her decades to realize she deserves. She's not seeking perfection. She's looking for someone mature enough to love without destroying, someone who's done the inner work she's already completed. Let's be honest, that's not something easily found. The discomfort she creates isn't in what she says, but in what she represents. She's living proof that happiness doesn't require dependency. That reality removes masks. Men who feed on female insecurity feel threatened by her. Women still trapped in seeking approval feel implicitly judged. But she isn't trying to challenge anyone. She's simply being authentic. And the genuine presence of someone who has liberated herself naturally becomes a mirror reflecting the constraints others still live within. This woman isn't rushing. She doesn't need to accelerate connections to please others. She honors her own timing. This creates a quiet tension in a society demanding immediate results. She seeks depth while the world chases distraction. She values presence while others offer only partial availability. She longs for soul-level connection while everyone else tries to appear interesting on social media. When she says no, it's not game playing, it's honesty. When she walks away, it's not drama, it's self-protection. When she chooses solitude over empty company, it's not arrogance, it's clarity. This clarity, earned through pain and surrender, becomes her greatest revolution. She doesn't exist to please others. She exists to be herself. And that simple act of authentic being makes her revolutionary in today's world. Perhaps what disturbs people most about this woman isn't her independence. It's the peace she's discovered within herself. Psychology teaches that those focused outward only dream, while those who look inward truly awaken. This inner journey was her path. It wasn't easy or comfortable. It was demanding work, removing masks, confronting ghosts of emotional dependency, rebuilding herself piece by piece. She no longer defines herself through others' perceptions. She sees herself through her own eyes. This changes everything. How often have you questioned whether being alone represents failure or freedom? How many times have you felt compelled to justify not having a partner? This woman has experienced those doubts too. She once wondered if something was wrong with her for being independent in a world that idealizes couples, even unhappy ones. Eventually, she realized it's better to be alone than invisible within a relationship. That day, she made a commitment to herself. Never again would she accept less than she truly deserves. Her journey isn't a straight line. She experiences days of doubt, moments of nostalgia, nights of profound silence, but also a strength growing with each conscious decision. She's learned that authentic love doesn't confine, consume, or manipulate. The connection she desires liberates, enhances, and supports without suffocating. Until that arrives, she continues growing independently, not from pride, but from integrity. This woman embodies psychological integration. She shattered, faced her shadow, descended into her unconscious, and emerged more complete than before. Now recognizing herself fully, she refuses to be half of anything again. She doesn't want someone to complete her. She wants someone to share this awareness with. That's intimidating because it requires emotional responsibility. Unfortunately, few are prepared to love responsibly. Most still connect from lack, possession, or fear. If she walks alone today, it's because every step resonates with learning. Every boundary she sets represents self-respect. Every absence she maintains reminds her that love should never be desperately sought. She no longer needs external validation. This certainty, emerging from her deepest self, transforms everything around her. A woman who has rediscovered herself becomes powerful, not through aggression, but through clarity. The woman living independently today isn't the same woman who once begged to be loved. Something fundamental shifted within her. That very breaking point ultimately liberated her. Sometimes only through collapse does the soul discover its true form. Psychology suggests that to reach significant heights, we must also develop deep roots into our darkest places. This was her experience. She descended into her personal darkness, confronted ancestral fears, inherited wounds, traumas belonging not just to her, but to generations of women before her. She broke destructive cycles. She rejected relationships repeating toxic patterns. She learned it wasn't her responsibility to heal others, save anyone, or accept crumbs from fear of being alone. When she stopped accepting less, society tried convincing her she was mistaken. But she maintained her position, first uncertainly, then consciously, finally with unshakable conviction, because someone who has faced their deepest fears no longer dreads solitude. She learns to nourish herself through silence, to warm herself with her own presence. She's not unapproachable. She simply no longer permits intrusion. There's a vast difference between opening your heart and allowing yourself to be damaged. She remains open, but only to those approaching with authenticity, not with rehearsed words or empty promises. Her experiences have heightened her discernment between genuine presence and performance. Her intuition has sharpened. Her energy serves as a natural filter. She senses inauthenticity from a distance and doesn't hesitate to step away. Her transformation isn't superficial. It's profound. It's as if she's connected with an ancient wisdom, a forgotten knowledge that women weren't created to serve but to express, not to be molded but to flourish. Accessing this awareness awakens something within her, a wild, intuitive, emotionally sovereign aspect, a woman who, though independent, is far from lost. She's connected to something larger, her own authentic path. No matter how others try to diminish her with labels, cold, difficult, distant, nothing adheres because she no longer lives to conform. She lives to expand. She doesn't fight for attention. She radiates presence. She's not waiting to be chosen. She does the choosing. This reversal of traditional dynamics confuses those still attempting to control feminine energy. But she's already crossed that threshold. On the other side, she discovered that genuine connection begins only after you've loved yourself enough to no longer need external validation. There's something remarkable about how she moves through the world. She doesn't require applause or public recognition. Her confidence is quiet. Within that quietness lives her true strength. Psychology tells us that what we confront within ourselves eventually shapes our destiny. Perhaps that's why this woman, by repeatedly choosing herself, has become the author of a path few understand but many secretly envy. She no longer tries filling emptiness with promises or convincing anyone she deserves love. She doesn't beg for space in anyone's life because she's learned that genuine presence should never be pleaded for. It should be freely offered. When that invitation lacks authenticity, she simply declines. She doesn't react with resentment or bitterness. She withdraws with the dignity of someone who's been lost too many times to repeat the same pattern. What few recognize is that this woman still desires connection. She still wants to be embraced, touched, cherished. But she wants this without losing herself, having spent too long trying to fit into spaces too constrained for her spirit. Now, she only offers herself where there's room to exist completely. This requires maturity beyond romantic notions. It requires awareness. It requires having faced one's own shadow and still choosing love. She's not seeking fairy tales. She's looking for a soul partnership, a connection without domination or submission, where both can flourish without diminishing their authenticity, silencing their truth, or compromising their dreams. If that seems excessive to some, She accepts that reality. She would rather wait than survive on emotional scraps. To many, this appears as arrogance. In truth, it's self-love in its purest expression. We're witnessing a new archetype emerging. A woman who has moved beyond superficiality and explored her depths. Who tired of being merely desired and chose to be respected. Who chose independence not because she abandoned hope and connection, but because she began understanding that authentic love never requires self-denial. When a woman realizes this, her entire reality transforms. She doesn't need to raise her voice to be heard. Her presence communicates before words. Wherever she goes, the energy shifts, something in the space realigns, subtly but unmistakably. This isn't mystical thinking. It's energy dynamics. It's the presence of someone who has faced her most challenging internal battles and returned at peace. Not because she conquered all fears, but because she learned to live alongside them without being defeated. Psychology would describe this as finding wholeness not by eliminating contradictions, but by integrating them. This woman doesn't reject love. She simply learned not to accept unbalanced dynamics where one person must diminish so another can dominate. She longs to connect, but within a relationship where her essence doesn't require editing. A love where she can be both shadow and light, joy and sorrow, silence and storm. She's recognized that those who only accept the pleasant aspects haven't yet understood what love truly means. Those demanding constant agreeability still don't appreciate the necessary bitterness that enables growth. She's too complete to accept fragments, too liberated to accept limitations disguised as protection, too sensitive to endure shallow connections, yet simultaneously strong enough to maintain this path, even when painful, even when solitary, even when misunderstood. This represents the journey of an awakened consciousness, sacrificing immediate validation for deeper truth. Society fears women like her. Women who don't need, who don't conform, who refuse to be shaped, because they challenge invisible structures, question established patterns, and break unspoken agreements that once declared a woman's worth dependent on partnership. When she rewrites these narratives, when she creates her own story, she inspires others. That represents a dangerous revolution to established systems. So she continues, sometimes tearfully, sometimes proudly, but always grounded, because now she understands she's not alone. She has herself. After everything she's experienced, that is more than enough. The love that eventually arrives won't represent salvation. It will be celebration. It won't come to complete her. It will come to complement what's already whole. When a woman chooses independence, society rushes to convince her she's mistaken. But deep within, she feels something aligning. It's not defiance or rebellion. It's an uncommon wisdom that can only develop in quietness. The same wisdom psychology calls individuation, the process of becoming fully yourself without pretense or compromise. When this happens, nothing external holds more power than the truth resonating within her. This truth doesn't need proclamation. It manifests in how she quietly closes doors without resentment, in how she withdraws when environments no longer nurture her, in how she smiles peacefully, even without companionship, because she's discovered that solitude isn't punishment. It's an act of loyalty to her authentic self. The soul of an awakened woman doesn't surrender, diminish, or plead. It simply exists, and that existence is sufficient. The world will continue telling her something's missing. It will keep offering distractions, superficial connections, relationships designed for appearance. But she's glimpsed behind these illusions. She's understood the essential truth. It's not about finding someone. It's about never losing yourself again. When this understanding blossoms, everything transforms. Desire becomes discernment. Emptiness becomes choice. Waiting becomes journey. What once hurt now teaches. What once confined now liberates. You can sense it deep within. That stirring, that spark. Perhaps it's a memory, an old wound, a longing that never found words. Maybe it's the image of a woman you once knew, or the woman you're becoming. Either way, something inside you asks for clearer recognition, something that no longer fits old patterns, something that, if allowed, could completely transform how you relate to love, to others, and most importantly, to yourself. This independent woman represents more than someone defying expectations. She embodies emotional freedom, a reminder that rebuilding is possible without urgency, without fear, without needing external validation. She doesn't lead others, nor does she follow. She creates her unique path, entirely her own. Along this journey, she illuminates the way for others awakening to similar realizations. If something within you resonated with this message, perhaps you're ready for a new kind of connection. A love beginning with self-reconciliation. A love nourished by silence, presence, and truth. A love that cannot be negotiated, begged for, or disguised. If this deeper connection hasn't arrived yet, perhaps it's because you first needed to become the woman who no longer accepts less than she deserves. If this message found you at the perfect moment or awakened something forgotten within you, I invite you to share it. Pass this video to other women who need remembering their own strength. Like it, comment, subscribe to this channel, not impulsively, but intentionally. Because when something touches your core, the least we can do is allow it to continue resonating within us and through our connection with others.